Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Torah. I'm your host, Rabbi Anibal. That is my name. I'm so happy to be here once again studying with all of you. So thank you so much for tuning in, and welcome to the class. Welcome to Torah. This is the second part of our studies on Chanukah. If you missed the first part, don't worry. You can still go to our YouTube channel. Video is still there, or Facebook. Video is still there. So yeah, and the chat is open. If you are watching this class, if you have access to the chat, either in YouTube or Facebook, please say hello. I want to know who is there. Like Shelly Chochinov was here nice and early. Welcome to the class. Maria was here as well. Welcome, Maria, to the class. And let's see who else is there. I'm curious as to who is studying. Who wants more about Chanukah? Who wants more about Chanukah? And by the way, Randy Lodinger is here. Shalom. Welcome, Randy. Last week, we studied about the miracles, plural, miracles of Chanukah. And yeah, at least two. Those are the most famous miracles, remember? Keith Levitt, welcome. Welcome to the class. Karen Farkas is here. Did you not receive my initial message? No, I didn't receive your initial message, Karen Farkas, probably because you typed something before I started the stream. I cannot read those, unfortunately. Probably if I go to YouTube, I can read it, but not from my little app that doesn't get active until I start the streaming. Yeah. Holy Mandelkorn is here as well. So, last week we studied about the miracles of Chanukah. The most famous ones, number one, the oil. Number two, the war, miraculously won by the Jewish army against the Greeks. So those are basically the two miracles that we celebrate every year. But I always count one more, which is the miracle of going ahead and lighting the menorah even though they have only one little container of oil. Don't minimize that. Don't minimize that, because human beings feel defeat, the feeling of defeat right away. And we get paralyzed and we don't do anything. And look at them. They realize that in the natural there will be no way that when one little bit of oil will be enough. But they say, okay, you know what? Let's do it anyway. And they got their miracle. But there will be no miracle unless they decided to go ahead and light that candle, that menorah. What a wonderful thing. Who else is here? Brenda and David Grossman is here as well. Welcome. Welcome. So, last week was all about the miracles. This week, I wanted to study with you. And yeah, again, what happened is I was so excited about Chanukah and everything that I want to talk to you today about the symbolisms of the menorah, for example, and how is Chanukah actually celebrated. We're going to study what we do at home and a little bit of what we do at the synagogue, because the liturgy changes a little bit, so we can celebrate the festival of Chanukah, the festival of the lights, at our services. Okay, that's also very important. And yeah. Okay, so let's get into it, because I hate when I run out of time at the end, so I shouldn't talk that much and we should start studying. And let me bring for you the first text for today. This is coming from the Talmud, from the Babylonian Talmud, Masechet Shabbat, which is the tractate called Shabbat, page 22b. And the rabbis are talking about one specific verse from the book of Leviticus. Leviticus 24:3, it says, Aaron, remember, Moses' brother, first high priest of the Jewish people, Aaron shall arrange the menorah outside the curtain in the tent of meeting. Well, we have to have a crash course on the tabernacle and on the temple. And so what you need to know is that it was there was the tent of meeting was the center of the tabernacle and the center of the temple. Now, eventually, when where the Ark of the Covenant was there, and what was inside the Ark of the Covenant? The Ten Commandments, and eventually the whole Torah, the written Torah, made its way inside to that Ark. So that was a super sacred and secret place that only the high priest, and in this context, at the beginning, only it's Moses. Moses would go there and he will have this direct communication with God, but eventually when the ark made there, only the high priest could enter there, okay? So it was not accessible for the entire Jewish people. Now, outside the tent of meeting, more people could come closer and they could see what happened. So while people couldn't see what it was inside, they could see the menorah outside. Okay? That's very important for you to visualize, because the menorah was on display while the Ark of the Covenant was not. More on that a little bit later in the class. But now, the rabbis in the Talmud, Masechet Shabbat, are trying to figure out why we needed the menorah. Remember, the menorah is a commandment. God said, you need to build a menorah made out of gold, and you have to put it there. But why? Why? Well, this is what the rabbi said. Does God need the light of the menorah? So one people said, well, maybe we need to put there to illuminate the tent of meeting. In other words, it's almost like giving God light. Beautiful thing, if you think about it, sharing light with God. But then it says, surely, they say, why do you want to do that? Say, all 40 years in the desert, the children of Israel only traveled by God's light. Rather, the menorah is testimony to the entire world that the divine presence rests on the Jewish people. So, explanation number one is that the menorah is not to give light to anything or anybody, but it's just as a reminder of the light of God that we had back in the day during those 40 years in the desert. Okay? This is explanation number one on why that menorah was necessary. Now, when I'm reading all this text, I want you to imagine the menorah that you are going to light during Chanukah. Because at the end of the day, the menorah that we have at home, the one we call Chanukah, right? It has one more light than the one that used to be in the temple. But that Chanukah is a reminder of the original menorah that we used to have in the temple, right? The one that needed the oil, that wasn't enough. You know what I'm talking about. So when I'm reading this text, think about your home and think about your menorah and think about why you need a menorah at home and what to get from that menorah when you look at it every day of Chanukah. So what I'm trying to do here is to go beyond the story of Chanukah and the Maccabees and the war against the Greeks, because the rabbis say that is much more encapsulated into that Chanukah that we have in our homes every day of Chanukah. Okay? Last week, we studied the two miracles. This week, give yourselves the chance to find more meaning, to go beyond the two miracles, to get more out of Chanukah. And then, as I always say, please don't go and tell me that Chanukah is a festival for kids, because it's not. Chanukah is so deep that you need to analyze it with an adult mind to really get a lot out of this holiday. And it's beautiful. It could be really inspirational to celebrate Chanukah properly and to understand all the symbols that we use. Shelley Judging, what is said, menorah always, but Chanukah, the extra candle, etc., only at Chanukah. Please explain. No. Basically, we need this special candelabra with an extra light because we are celebrating the 8 days of the miracle, right? But the original one was the menorah. So after the menorah was stolen and it disappeared, technically we are not allowed to have the menorah anymore. But this is a different kind of... Okay, let me back up. The word menorah, and this is where the confusion starts. The word menorah means candelabra. Every candelabra that you may have at home is a menorah. So the Chanukah is a Chanukah menorah. You understand? That's what it is. So there is a confusion in the usage of the word a little bit there. But this is a special Chanukah menorah that we have to celebrate the 8 days of Chanukah, but at the same time, it kind of remind us of the original menorah that we had in the temple, the one that is described here in Masechet Shabbat in the text that I just read. So let's continue now. This is from the Talmud, explanation number 1 of why we need the menorah. To remember the light of God. Okay? That it was shining on the Jewish people all the way from Egypt to the Promised Land. Now, the Midrash Rabbah, will add an extra layer to that explanation. And the Midrash Rabbah says, the verse states, this is from the book of Psalms, for it is you who lights my lamp. Who is you? Capital Y is God, right? For it is you who light my lamp. Israel said to the Holy One, blessed be he, sovereign of the universe. Do you ask us that we should give light before you? You surely are the light of the universe, and brightness abide with you. And it is written, the light dwells with him. Him is God. Let you say, the lamp shall illuminate the menorah. Okay, so do you understand this? I said, now, theory number 1, the menorah that we light outside the tent of the meeting was to illuminate God. Because remember, the ark and everything inside the tent of the meeting is supposed to be a reminder of the presence of God. So if you have something illuminating that, basically the understanding from the Midrash is we are giving God light. And then he said, doesn't make any sense. God doesn't need any light. God is the source of light, and God is giving us light. How can we give light to God? So let's continue with the words of Midrash. Well, this explains the verse, for it is you who lights my lamp. The Holy One, blessed be he, said to Israel, it is not because I require your service, but in order that you may give me light, even as I given you light. For what purpose? That you may rise in the estimation of the nations, who will say, see how Israel give light to him who gives light to the whole world. Well, welcome Caroline Lewis-Smith from Tampa, Florida. And Para Goldman, welcome as well. Welcome to the class. So, what happened here is this is not much difference of what we do every day. Hello, Philip Pielk. Welcome to the class. What we do every day in the prayers. You come to shul and we say Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai hameborach. Do you realize what you are saying there when the Sheliach Tzivur, when the cantor says Baruch Hu et Adonai hameborach? It says, bless God, the source of blessing. How can you bless the source of blessing? Doesn't make any sense, right? If God is blessing us because God is the source of blessing, why are we trying to bless God? Well, and the reality is what we are doing is that we are sharing back, we are giving back. And this is something that we do every day, and especially in Chanukah, if you see this explanation from the Midrash, that we are trying to learn that God is blessing us so we can share that blessing with others, even with God. Even with God. God doesn't need the light, but God appreciates that we share that light with God. Do you understand the concept here? If you don't share any light with God, God doesn't really need the light. But God understands that we need to learn how to share the blessing. And we start that process by sharing the blessing, by sharing the light back to God. Remember Abraham. when God blessed Abraham. And it's a beautiful thing that we read in the book of Genesis, that God said to Abraham, I'm going to bless you, and you're going to be a blessing. There's even a song. You can, it's Lechilach from Debbie Friedman. And you shall be a blessing, we sing in this song. And you shall be a blessing, Lechilach. It's a beautiful thing. So, and one of the things that we should learn when we look at the menorah every day of Chanukah is that light that we see there is a reminder that we should benefit from that light. We should get inspired by that light, but it has to be some kind of giving back of all that blessing. It should inspire us to give to others. And sometimes the giving to others starts by giving back to God. There are many ways of giving back to God, by the way. Many ways to giving back to God. Number one is blessing God with your words. The other way is by sharing everything that God gives you with others, and including God. Some people say that when you donate part of your wealth to a synagogue or to your house of study or a place that teaches Torah, you are somehow giving back to God, because that will help to spread the inspiration of the Word of God, spread Torah to other people. So we have ways to share and to give back to God. But in Chanukah, we do it through the light. Who else is here? Howard Heimovich. Welcome from snowy Miramichi, New Brunswick. Okay, we are the same today. It's snowy in Winnipeg as well. Very snowy, actually. Okay, any comments? Any comments? Shelly Chochino says, Hashem gave us light, so we're reflecting like back to him at Chanukah. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. Absolutely. But if there is any other comment, please let me know in the chat. I'm reading all the messages. Now, let's continue with the Midrash here. I like Midrash. Now, the rabbis take it up a notch. Randy Lodinger, you said, does the light represent awareness from God? Oh, that's very interesting. That's pretty much what I want to do next. Now we understood the concept of the menorah itself, okay, as an object, as a reminder of the original menorah from the temple. Now let's talk a little bit. Howard Heimovich, our creator, is a capitalist. No, it's not a capitalist, but it's God gives us what we need. And I will leave it there. God gives us what we need in different circumstances. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's health, sometimes it's joy, sometimes it's companionship. God gives us what we need. God created the world. God knows what we need. Okay, so now let's talk about the light itself, not so much as the object, but about the light. Okay, and let's go back to the Midrash. And now we have Midrash again, Breshit Rabbah, that it says, Rabbi Shimon said, the word light is written 5 times in the first paragraph of the Torah, corresponding to the 5 books of the Torah. So now we have one explanation that equals the word light with Torah. So, Randy, when you say, does the light represent awareness from God? Well, if light represents Torah, yes, then yes, light is awareness, because Torah is what we have to be aware or to understand the world. That's why we study Torah, to understand God, to understand the world, to understand ourselves. If that's not awareness, I don't know what it is, right? Anyway, so the word light, according to the Midrash, written 5 times, corresponding to the 5 books of Torah. And then the Talmud expands a little bit and said, all those that utilize the light of the Torah sustains them. It's a beautiful thing. Any comments about this? any comments, because it's yeah, Shelley says out of the darkness into the light. Well, yeah, it's almost like you have to understand this as a metaphor. The metaphor here is without the Torah, we're in darkness. Let's back up, and I hope where is it? Let me see. Keith Levitt is still here. I hope he's still here. Keith Levitt, by the way, if you don't know him, one of the greatest photographers here in Canada. Amazing photographer. And if he's here, he won't let me lie, in the sense that when you're a photographer, you know, the proper light can make it or ruin it. Yeah, you are, Keith. But you know, and you should know it, right? If you don't have the right light, it's going to be a disaster. You need the right light to get the right photo, the right movie, right? Otherwise, there is very little that you can do. So the Torah works in that way. If you want to have a better shot at life, you need to have the right light. And I feel that there are many different kind of lights competing in our generation, trying to present themselves as the proper light to see life properly, that you will have a more accurate perspective of life. Well, in Judaism, we believe that light is the light of Torah. That when you look at life through the lenses of Torah, then you can see things more clear. But it takes time, takes study, takes lots of questioning, takes lots of introspection until we can do that. But hey, and look, I'm streaming this to you, and you can't believe the kind of lights that I have to do for you to have a clear picture, right? And it took me a while. It took me a while to figure it out. Lots of research, right? And the Torah is the same. You won't get it one day to the other. But we believe that that's the best source of light we have, because it comes directly from God. And when we light the Chanukah, in Chanukah, that's one of the things that we should remember. That those lights also represents the light of Torah, the ones who allows us to see things more clearly. Yeah. Randy Lodinger said, awareness leads to awakening when we receive the light. Awareness leads to awakening. Interesting. You're getting philosophical, Randy. I like that. But you see, it's also, let's continue with the metaphor here of awakening. That's what happened with us in the morning, right? Sometimes when we see the light outside, we get out of bed. If you wake up in the morning and it's still dark, it's like, you don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to get out of bed, for sure. Sometimes it happens to me that I have to go lead the service in the morning. Service starts at 7:30. I have to wake up around 6 if I still want to have my fancy coffee in the morning, and I don't want to get out of bed because it's dark. But then if it's light outside, it's different. It's different. Awakening, let's say, that is easier when you have light. Absolutely. So let's continue. And I want to give you some comments from other rabbis. You heard my comments, but I want to share for you reflections of other rabbis about this concept. Andre Royave, welcome to the class. You're never late. You're never late. Remember, for not just you and everybody, if you missed any part of the class, as soon as the class is over, you can replay the whole class, and otherwise it will also be rebroadcasted tonight at 8 p.m. Central Time, so there is no late here. Okay, let's study a little bit. Whenever the Torah or the sages refer to the oil used to light the menorah, an allusion is intended to the wisdom of the heart and the thoughts of the mind. You see what I'm talking about here, right? Now, not just the light, but also the oil that produces the light. Okay, I love this. So, when the Greeks entered the holy temple and defiled the oil, they blemished the thoughts and feelings of the majority of the people of Israel, who began to accept that the wisdom of the Greeks contain enduring reality. So in other words, this is fantastic because I want to go back to who said Randy, the one that you said awareness leads to awakening, right? Something happened to you. You have an internal process that it will make you feel aware and awake. But it says, this rabbi, what he's saying is sometimes it's a process that starts with a thought or with a feeling. So it will say that if the original thought and the original feeling are contaminated, then the end result won't be pure. Quite interesting. Okay, so basically, let's go back here. When the Greeks entered the Holy Temple and defiled the oil, they blemish the thoughts and feelings of the majority of the people of Israel, who began to accept that the wisdom of the Greeks contained enduring reality. And that's why they didn't want to use non-kosher oil to light the menorah until they can produce more kosher oil. To make a point. Okay? More about that in a minute. When the Hasmoneans came and entered the sanctuary, they found one jar that contained pure oil, an amount sufficient for 1 day's lighting. Despite all that the Greeks had done to defile the thoughts of the people of Israel, there still remained a modicum of light in their hearts, a single spark of true wisdom, which enabled them to know that they were sacred and had been chosen among the nations. The nations of the world were destined to follow Israel's light, rather than Israel following theirs. So, in other words, what it says is sometimes it's preferable, right, to have a lesser amount of pure oil than to have a lot of contaminated oil. Sometimes less is more, especially in spiritual things. Sometimes less is more. It's yeah, and I don't know how to explain sometimes why this happens to us, right? That people that they have very limited, very limited Jewish education, or but then that feeling, or could be something that they saw the grandparents observing Judaism, or something that it keeps burning inside. It's very small compared to anything else, but keeps that internal flame burning. It keeps our Judaism alive, but it's just that little bit that keeps us moving in the Jewish journey, which is it's very interesting to me. It happened to me. I don't know how I ended up being a rabbi, and I had to say that it would probably be for a couple of very intense experiences that I had when I was a child from my grandparents. Because I went to Hebrew day school, but it was a secular Hebrew day school. I would say anti-religious Hebrew day school. And here I am. And it's funny because we had kind of like a virtual reunion. We were talking with our classmates back in elementary school and I think we counted from our classroom, it was a classroom of 20, 21, 22 people, 4 rabbis, which is a pretty high percentage, if you ask me, for an anti-religious school. Anyway, Karen Farkas, you said Leonard Cohen song anthem has the lines, "Ring the bells, still can ring, forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." Interesting. Well, he has lots of Judaism transpiring into his lyrics, if you ask me. If you take time to analyze what he said, there is lots of Jewish wisdom encapsulated in his songs. Okay, let's continue. Another reflection here. In the temple and the tabernacle, there were 2 special vessels among the others. Okay, so this is another symbolism that we are going to learn from the menorah, okay, or the Chanukah in this case. The tabernacle and the temple and tabernacle, they were two special vessels among the others. The ark containing the two tablets and the menorah. Okay? The ark, which was behind the curtain inside the Holy of Holies, served as the foundation for the written law. Yeah, literally, the written stones, right? And those were inside the ark, and the ark was hidden inside the Holy of Holies. All the prophecies that Moses heard emanated from above the lid of the ark. And this is written, and I will meet you there, and I will speak with you from above the lid of the ark, from between the two cherubs. That is how God communicated to Moses, by the way, in the words of the Torah. It's almost like that was the red phone where Moses could talk to God. Would something happen over the lid of the ark? From there came the influence of the written law to the nation of Israel. Okay? Because everything that Moses heard from inside the Holy of Holies, Moses wrote on a piece of parchment. Eventually, at the end of his life, he rolled it out. That was the written Torah, put it back inside the ark. Okay? Outside the curtain to the Holy of Holies was the menorah, which was the source of influence of wisdom and the oral law to the Torah sages. You see, this is here we're trying to understand that when we say Torah, we have to be more specific, especially in our way to experience Judaism. You have to understand that the kind of Judaism that we observe is called rabbinic Judaism. Why? Because we acknowledge and we accept the authority of the rabbis as the interpreters and codifiers of the law. So when we say Torah, we have two Torahs. It's not that we have two testaments, Old Testament and New Testament. But if you ask me, it kind of is like that, but I don't want to go there. We have the written Torah that is sealed. It cannot be touched. It cannot be modified in any way, to the point that when a scribe write a scroll of Torah in this day, and you Shelley Chochinov, because Shelley donated a Torah to the synagogue a few years ago, you will know that when the scribe go and write it, there are certain typos. And I say typos because the scribe has to actually replicate those typos the way they came to him from traditional sources. It's something that has never been modified. We don't know why that letter is different here and there. We perceive that it's typed, it's wrong, but it has to stay there because we cannot touch it. We cannot modify it in any way or form. And how to write a Sefer Torah has to be studied, it has to be precise. They cannot improvise. Okay? It's very important. But in the other side, we have the oral law, which eventually, like a broken vav and everything, yeah, but there was, sometimes it's a yud when it should be a vav and vice versa. There are many things. So, but in the other hand, the rabbis say, now the menorah, yes, it represents the Torah, but it represents more the oral Torah, all the interpretations and all the discussions around the written Torah. In other words, the rabbi's Torah is represented in the menorah. But when I say the rabbi Torah, what I'm talking about is the applications of the Torah. And that is more flexible. That is alive. That is evolving in every generation. Okay? So let me finish with this text and we can talk more about this. A hint of the symbolism of the menorah is cited by our sages in the Talmud. One who wants to gain wisdom should face the menorah located in the southern part of the temple. The menorah is associated with wisdom, and the influence of wisdom is through the teachings of the Jewish sages. Why is that? Because when you read the written Torah, it's barren. There is not much there, except a bunch of instructions, a few stories, maybe. But then you need to know how to read between lines. You need to know how to extract a message through the stories. You need to know how to apply the law of the Torah in different situations, right? And that came to us through the work of the rabbis. So the Torah is the inspiration, but the real wisdom comes from the work of the rabbis. And that is what's represented on the menorah. So when we look at the Chanukah, yes, that's the light of wisdom. That's the light of wisdom that came to us through the rabbis. That's the interpretation that we're reading here. And that's why the menorah was of public access, while the written Torah in the Holy of Holies was not. Because the Torah came to us through the words of the rabbis. And that's the kind of Judaism that we live, that we experience, by the way. Shelley, you said the meaning is in the white spaces, not in the black letters with points by the... Yeah, there are many interpretations, but that's all the work of the rabbis, right? The rabbis are the one who extract those beautiful messages, beautiful teachings from the Torah. So the other thing that I wanted to share with you, and this is fascinating, I'm back to the topic of Chanukah. And it's, we celebrate the miracle of the oil, we celebrate the bottle, we get inspired by the menorah, by the Chanukah, the Torah, the rabbis, all good. But what I wanted to tell you is that the time of Chanukah as a special time for humanity precedes the festival of Chanukah. The Talmud actually tells us that moment of the year was celebrated way before Chanukah was a thing, and I wanted to share this with you. Listen to this midrash that is contained in the Talmud. It says, when Adam first human, right? When Adam noticed that the days were getting shorter, he said, is the world becoming darker because of my sins? Will it soon return to chaos? And this is what God meant when he punished me with mortality. So he prayed and fasted for 8 days. 8 days. Can you see it here? Let's continue. When the period prior to the winter solstice arrived, he saw that the days were now growing longer. He realized, oh, this is the way of the world. Adam then made 8 days of celebration to celebrate what? The winter solstice, in other words. So it seems that it was some kind of precedent before Chanukah, and there was some kind of popular celebration to celebrate the winter solstice with something that lasted for 8 days. And it's not a coincidence that lights were used, because we are celebrating, or they were celebrating, the fact that now days are getting longer and longer, that we are getting more and more light. Okay? So it's a very interesting, even the Talmud acknowledges that it was a historical precedent to a celebration at that time of the year. And Chanukah is around the winter solstice, like it or not. It is. It is. Okay? Anyway, so with that in mind, I want to now start talking about some of the practicalities of Chanukah. How do we celebrate Chanukah? Because at the end of the day, that's what you need to know. How can you celebrate Chanukah at home? So let's go back to the Talmud, Masechet Shabbat, page now 23a. It says, what is the blessing recited upon lighting the Chanukah candles? One blesses, blessed are you, God, our God, King of the universe, who has commanded us to light the Chanukah candles. Now, there is a problem here. Because how can we say in the blessings that God commanded us to light the Chanukah candles if there is no reference of Chanukah in the Torah? God never said to Moses, You shall light the menorah, the Chanukah candles. You shall light the Chanukah. It's not one of the 613 commandments that God gave to Moses. So how can we pin the commandment on God? This is the question the Talmud is trying to answer here, right? So, let's continue. What is the biblical source for this command? Rabbi Avia said, do not deviate from the things they, the rabbis, tell you. Rav Nehemiah said, from the verse, ask your father and he will tell you, ask your elders and they will tell you. Okay? In other words, the rabbis are talking on God's behalf. Why? Because God gave the rabbis the authority to do it. Where? Deuteronomy said, do not deviate from the things they tell you. God said that. God is pre-authorizing the rabbis to rule on God's behalf. And that's why the blessing that we use to light the Chanukah says, Blessed are you, God, our God, King of the universe, who has commanded us to light the Chanukah candles. So we understand there's still the will of God. It's very interesting, theologically, by the way. Okay, let's continue. Now, more the practicalities. The Talmud says the rabbi taught the mitzvah of lighting the Chanukah menorah is one candle for a person and his home. You understand this? Back in the day, Talmudic times, most people will celebrate Chanukah lighting one candle per night. What? Yeah, one candle per night. That's it. Hey, what's the problem with that? That single candle is in remembrance of the menorah, and you do it for 8 days. You are celebrating the 8 days of the miracle of the oil. Nothing wrong with that, right? Now, the Talmud continues, but beautification of this mitzvah is to light one candle for each member of the household. Well, you know that we never fulfill the minimum. We always want to make it more beautiful, and that's the way we observe our Judaism. Yeah, the Torah says that we have to write the law of God in the frames of our doors. But it's not that we just nail there a piece of parchment. No, we roll it and we put it inside a beautiful case and we call that a mezuzah, right? We make it pretty. So this is the same. There was a mitzvah to light one candle, but some people said, let's take it to the next level. Instead of one candle, some people started to light one candle per each member of the household. So everybody will participate. Beautiful thing. Let's continue. But there were those who took the extra task to make it extra special. And for those who did that, there were two traditions. The school of Shammai said that the most beautiful way to perform the mitzvah is to light 8 candles on the first day of Chanukah and decrease on each night. Okay, so start 8 candles the first night, 7 candles on the second night, 6 candles on the third night, and so forth, until on the last night of Chanukah, only 1 candle. House of Shammai said this is the way. The school of Hillel said to light 1 candle on the first night and increase on each night. That's exactly the way we do it. So, if you have to guess, right, the rabbis debated and said, okay, guys, let's vote. Who won? As always, who won? Hillel won. And that's the way we do it. One candle the first night, 8 candles on the last night. Okay? Andrea, you said that feels wrong. 8-1 does not sound right. Well, you have to understand that it doesn't sound right for us because we don't do it this way. But some people try to understand that the rationale of Shammai was to mimic, or no, how you say it, to mimic. You know what I'm talking about in a minute. to do it like Sukkot, because Sukkot is the immediate past festival. It's the last festival we celebrated now before Chanukah, Sukkot. And on Sukkot, we used to sacrifice 70 bulls, 70, and then the way we used to do it is in decreasing order every day of Sukkot. And that is the theory that the Israelites tried to enter to the temple and to clean it in time to celebrate Sukkot, but the war lasted a little longer, so they couldn't do it. So the very first thing they celebrated in the temple was a late Sukkot. And Shammai wanted to represent that as well, so start with 8, finish with 1. Okay? But as Karen Farka says here, you said, Karen, Hillel makes sense because we are increasing our joy and celebrate as the days go on. Yeah, because the day gets longer as well, right? But Shammai makes sense because we get sadder and we reach the end of the holiday. Well, but the Shammai understand what it is, but you're absolutely right about Hillel. Right, Shelley, you said it right. In these days, we combine the two sources. 1 Chanukah per household member, and we go from 1 to 8. So 2 things that you have to have into consideration. It's not just 1 Chanukah per household, it's 1 Chanukah per household member. So if there are 3 people living in your house, you need 3 Chanukiot, and lots of candles, lots and lots of candles. Okay, so let's continue. The rabbis taught the mitzvah of lighting the Chanukah menorah is one. I explained that, and this is what Karen, you say, right? Hillel said, we seek to elevate our level of holiness and do not look to decrease it. And that's, by the way, became something that it was used for many other decisions, rabbinic decisions, that it was learned from the discussion of Chanukah, that in religious matters, we always elevate, we never decrease. Okay? Hillel actually created a principle that it was used in many other ways, okay, in many other contexts. We always increase, never decrease. Let's continue. The other thing you have to know is that it is customary to light an additional candle each night as well as the Chanukah candles, right? This candle is called the shamash, which indicates that it is permissible to use its light and to light the other candles from it. The Chanukah lights themselves are not allowed to be used for light the whole time that they are burning for the purpose of the mitzvah. So what happened here, this is the rabbinic thought at its best. You light the menorah, the Chanukah candles, but those candles should serve for the sole purpose of reminding us the miracle of Chanukah. That's it. I said, well, but what do you mean? It also illuminates the room. Well, we have a problem then, because those candles cannot illuminate the room. They should be only to remember the miracle. So what did the rabbis do? Right? I will finish the text here. Therefore, we light the shamash in order that we should not benefit from the lights of the mitzvah, but only from that shamash candle. So the shamash is there not really to light the other candles, but the shamash is the one that does not serve the purpose of publicizing the miracle, but to illuminate the room. And because the lights are indistinguishable, but when you put the Chanukah plus the shamash in a room, you cannot tell which one is which. So halachically, it's permissible to use that menorah to illuminate the room, because there is one candle mixed with those. That's the wine illuminating. This is rabbinic thought. That's rabbinic logic. That's the way they think. It's I don't know. Somehow it reminds me to a firing squad. You know, firing squad, that one person has blanks while the other has real bullets, and you never know which one it is. Even the shooters, they don't know who had the blank. Never know. So this is the same. You don't know which one is a candle that is illuminating, or which one are the one just for the miracle, because they all come from the same source, from the same place. That's why the shamash is important. So the shamash does not need to be the one that you use to light the other candles, but it needs to be there to illuminate the room. Okay? Now, the other thing is you have to remember the mitzvah of the Chanukah lights is to place it on the outside at the entrance of one's home. Okay, that was the original tradition at the entrance. In these days, we put it in a window. Why? As Rashi explained, this is in order to publicize the miracle, because you have to share that light and the miracle with other people, so you put it in a public place where people can see it. Okay? And now, when we do this? What time of the day? Well, Shulchan Aruch is very clear. It says, one lights the Chanukah lamp from sunset onward. Okay? If one did not light at sunset, one should light as long as people are returning from the marketplace, which is approximately 1/2 hour after sunset, since this is the optimal time to publicize the miracle. This is very interesting. Now, in these days, the people's routines are a little bit different, but there is still a time when there are still people outside driving, walking. So the Shulchan Aruch, if we had to understand and to adapt a little bit these words, what you have to do is to light the menorah, or the Chanukah, basically at a time where are still people going outside that they can see the menorah in your window. Okay? Even though you can light it all night, that is better because we want to publicize the miracle of Chanukah. That's why the Shulchan Aruch says, if this time period has passed and one has not lit the lamps, one may light the entire night. Okay? There is always a preferable time, but if you cannot do it because you come really, really late at night, doesn't matter. You can do it a little later. Okay? So I just wanted to share with you how we do it this year, right? So here you have it. Here you have it. This is a chart to understand when Chanukah starts this year, right? And when it ends. So you will see that the first night of Chanukah, December 18th, we need to recite 3 blessings. I'm going to show you the blessings in a minute. After that is 2 blessings every night. And we have to light the Chanukah every day after nightfall, except for Friday, December 23rd, that you have to light it before the Shabbat candles. Okay? And on Saturday, December 24th, remember, first you do the Havdalah, then you light the Chanukah. Is that clear? I hope it is. I hope it is. So, when people ask you, when does Chanukah end? Well, Chanukah doesn't end on Sunday, December 25th, right? Chanukah ends on Monday, December 26th in the evening. So Monday is Chanukah all day. Clear? That's always confusing. Chanukah does not end on Sunday. Chanukah ends at the end of Monday. Little trick. You have to remember how the Jewish calendar works. Okay, the 3 blessings I was talking about. Blessing number 1. Is Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav etzivanu liadlik ner shel Chanukah. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandments, that has commanded us to light the Chanukah lamps. Okay? It's the kind of blessing that you will expect at every holiday. The same way that we do the same blessing, except at the end is liadlik ner shel Shabbat, whenever it's Shabbat, or liadlik ner shel Yom Tov, whenever it's a festival. In this case, liadlik ner shel Chanukah. All clear? This is the first blessing and the one that you may expect. The second one is blessed Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa nisim lavoteinu bayamim ha'em bazman hazeh. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has done miracles for our fathers in those days. at this time. Recognizing that we are celebrating a historical event. Okay? We acknowledge that through a blessing. And finally, the one that I told you that is only for the first night is the Sheheyanu, giving God thanks for getting life to celebrate Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sheheyanu v'kimanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has given us life and has sustained us and has brought us to this time. And remember, very important, I put it there, that the blessings are recited before lighting the menorah. Why do I have to tell you this? Because on Shabbat is the opposite. On Shabbat, basically you light the candles first and then you say the blessing. But on Chanukah, you say the blessing. So the way you do it is you light the shamash. Shamash comes first. Then you recite all the blessings, 1, 2, or 3. And then after you finish, you start lighting the menorah. And remember, when you light the menorah, you always start with the one to the left. The one to the left comes first. So for example, on Wednesday, that you will say there, on Wednesday, that there are 4 candles, you start with the one closer to the shamash first, and then you move to the right. Okay? That's the way we light the menorah. And yeah, well, unfortunately, time's up, and we didn't have time to talk about what we do in the synagogue. I just want to say that when you come to synagogue, you should expect for every day of Chanukah a Torah reading that is talking about the dedication of the sanctuary, the tabernacle, right? Because it is kind of Chanukah. Chanukah was the rededication. So on Chanukah, when we have to find something in the Torah, we read about the first dedication of the tabernacle. We add one paragraph on the Amidah, which is Al Anisim, when we celebrate the miracles of Chanukah. And we also add Hallel, verses of praise to God, because we are happy that we had the miracles that allowed the Jewish people to exist today. Well, I hope this added something to your Chanukah experience, and I hope you get inspired by the celebration of Chanukah. And when you look at the Chanukah this year, think about these things, but what you get from this. Okay? So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today. Remember, if you missed anything, it's going to be restreamed at 8 p.m. tonight Central Time. Please give it a thumbs up for this video. Share it with a friend. Subscribe to our channels. And have a great rest of your day. Stay safe. I hope to see you soon. Thank you so much. And Chag Sameach. Chanukah Sameach. I hope you have a happy celebration of Chanukah. Bye, everyone.